Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands to first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions for the first time in 86 years.
Together they have, and together they stand alone on top of the mountain for now. And once again, the Boston Celtics stand alone for all time. It is banner 18.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
And a title for the Patriots!
I can't believe it!
They have completed the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
Good morning, listeners. Welcome into episode 58 of a New Era podcast. My name is Hanson, better known as Fryddy Online, and I am joined here by my dad and co-host, the OG Frid. Dad, would you like to say hello to the listeners this morning on our post-Super Bowl Monday?
Yeah, I guess happy Super Bowl Eve holiday that I'm sure a lot of individuals, especially in Philadelphia, wish they had the day off or are taking a sick day today.
It should be a holiday. It should be a holiday. I think we need to expand the NFL season like Roger Goodell wants to do so that this occurs on President's Day and then the day after the Super Bowl will be President's Day. I know that's his idea. I think that needs to happen. I don't know why Super Bowl Monday isn't a holiday. It'd be cool.
You wish it was. You wish it was.
I'm fucking tired, man. Yes, I wish it was. All right. Yeah, let's talk about that first, and then we'll do a little roundup of the week for our Boston stuff because of the hour-long preview that we did for the Super Bowl last week, as is. What was the final score? I just had it in, 40-22, Birds. We thought this was going to be a closer game, Dad.
Yes,
I know
we did.
For the sake of being a good game, both of our predictions were way closer than this. But I will say, damn, this felt good to watch. I never thought I'd be this happy to see a Philadelphia win. But Jalen Hurts was able to step in the way of the bad man, Patrick Mahomes, and end the three-peat last night. And how much did you watch? Give me your thoughts, reaction about the Super Bowl, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, well, I watched all the way into the third quarter, and then obviously it got out of hand. I was like, "Oh, good, I can go to bed." I mean, obviously it was out of hand by halftime. Just amazing defensive work. I mean, we said it in our preview that the Eagles defensive line, if they can disrupt the Kansas City offensive line, things were going to happen, and especially the secondary. How do you feel, Cooper DeJean, on your birthday, getting that pick six? I mean, that was it. There was no coming back after that.
Yeah. I mean, that one, I felt like the real point of no return for the Chiefs was not even the pick six. Feel like as much as I hate him, you still got Patrick Mahomes on the field. But it was the pick. It was the second pick. It was the one with about a minute 54 left, a minute 34 left. I think it was Zach Bond right over the middle. That one, when they were trying to drive right before the end of the first half, that's when I was really like, yeah, this is done. I had a buddy of mine come over to me and said, but Hanson, what if the script is that? What if the script is that Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes needs to be down by more than Tom Brady to make the biggest comeback of Super Bowl history and get the three-peat? And I looked at him dead in the face and I said, walk away before I punch you in the fucking face right now, because that's not happening.
I said the same exact thing to your mom and Sav. at halftime, I said, the script is written right now.
I would have lost it.
27-0. He's ready to make the comeback. All the calls are going to go the Chiefs' way.
I would have lost it.
Which, I mean, we were correct. First call was on the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a little.
That was a bad call. That was a really bad call. I still don't think that was OPA, but it doesn't matter when you win by 18.
Yeah.
Probably should have won by 40. But it was just a complete dominant ass whooping. And I was reminded very soon after the game why part of me deep down also did not want the Chiefs to win. Philadelphia was a wreck. I'm surprised it's still running this morning and not completely burnt down. But whereas usually I'd be telling them go fuck themselves, you earned this one, Philly. Y'all did. I got nothing on them. They played great. I tweeted something during the Super Bowl last night, and I want to bring this up with you. Jalen might be top 3 to me with a Super Bowl win now. I know this is a hot take. I know this is what every Philly fan's going to want to hear. But he's a winner now.
Yeah.
He's always been a winner. He's a Super Bowl winner now, and that is big. I know, Josh Allen is an MVP winner as of Thursday night as well. But I think as somebody that continually discredits Jalen Hurts, and I love doing so, might be time to finally give him his flowers. I got it Mahomes, Lamar, Jalen, at least going into next year. And I feel like he's deserved it after the performance that he put on, not only in the first Super Bowl, where he should have won Super Bowl MVP as a loser, but last night as well, and now being a Super Bowl champion.
Well, it is amazing, too, how, this team has had an incredible defense, obviously, through the year. And I thought it was more a defensive team, but for the last two playoff games to be able to produce this type of offense that they did with Saquon, 25 carries, 57 yards.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was talking about last week. I've thought this was the best defense in the league all year. And they definitely showed it last night too, but I don't want that to take away from the fact that they were insanely efficient offensively outside of Saquon Barkley, but that's what happens when you have a team sell out just to beat Saquon. Yeah. It was very evident that was the Chiefs' game plan, as it should have been, but maybe their game plan should have been, not throw to the guys in the other jerseys. That would be good. That usually wins you a game. Mahomes looked lost. I mean, you look at some of the stats at halftime that were popping up, like 200 total yards to 14 or 20 or whatever it was at a certain point. I know the Chiefs had more plays than they did positive yardage, but it was great. The Chief fans are still going to come back. Well, we went back to back and we did all that. But this game cannot be erased from history, and it definitely all those talks that I was hearing all week, and I can't wait to turn on First Take this morning and hear what they have to come up with about this one. But all the stuff that I was hearing last week about Patrick Mahomes approaching GOAT territory on Tom Brady got very quiet. Not even after the game, by halftime last night, as it should have. There still is only one Tom Brady. There will forever only be one Tom Brady and one GOAT. And that's the happiest. That's the best part of last night for me. That's why I'm the happiest about how this game was handled. And the Chiefs needed to get humbled. And we finally saw it. Now, is that scary for the rest of the league? It might be for them for next year. I don't know what they're going to do. Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think obviously there's a blueprint. Yes, they still went 17-3. during the year, only 3 losses.
15-2.
Yet, well, I'm looking through the playoffs.
After okay, yeah.
But a lot of the games were very close. The offense wasn't there. Where do you go from here? Is Travis gonna retire, or does he decide to try and come back? There is a lot of questions coming from a team that was so dominant, number one in the AFC, and everyone's thinking, yeah, definitely a three-peats, very capable. This team could go from number one really to number 6 very quickly. They have a lot of answers they have to come up with.
They do, and a lot of these questions weren't answered throughout the week as well. Travis was asked a bunch throughout the media sessions that they have for Super Bowl, what his plans were going forward, if this was going to be the last year. I think at one point he said he does see himself having a lot of good football in him, but he's still up in the air about coming back next year. I think if they would have won, we all know how that would have went. It would have been three-peat, Kelsey retires on the field, Taylor Swift proposal, all of this, like the league wanted. But now with that loss, I don't know. And you could see it too. It was very evident, and the cameras on Fox were doing a great job at showing it. They were crushed by this game. The amount of times they would show the Chiefs sideline, and just the look on their faces is like they got hit by a truck, because they honestly did in this game. It was ass whooping. It was belt to ass for a full 60 minutes. And the Chiefs, even though they were so great and so, some would say, dominant throughout the year, pulling out these wins in close games, the Eagles never let it get to that point. And I know we mentioned this. If the Eagles wanted to win this game, they could have never had it close enough that they could have potentially had the game stolen. They had to do enough that this game could not be put in the hands of the refs. And from the jump, honestly, I'll give them the first quarter. It was no scoring really outside of that touchdown by the Eagles. But outside of that, the Eagles never had this close enough to even have the refs have any consideration about keeping the Chiefs in it. I found it funny at our Super Bowl party that we were watching it at. Some people were talking about how, if this game was closer, we would have seen a lot more flags. But the refs had to try to cover their ass and not throw as many for the Chiefs last night, because after the backlash that they got in the Bills game, but also they could have thrown about 25 flags last night, and it wouldn't have brought this game any closer.
Yeah. So, I was very, Andy, you talked about the camera look, and Andy Reid himself looked lost calling the plays. Who in your opinion was more lost? Was it Andy and not able to find a way to stop that defensive front, or was it Patrick?
I'll give you a different answer. I think it was, in terms of just lost, and I'm combining this with frustration, visible frustration, with Steve Spagnuolo. He was throwing a fucking fit on that sideline with good reason. Some of the busted plays that they had, they had a deep ball to A.J. Brown later on in the game that went along perfectly with what we said should happen in this game. They should have attacked Trent McDuffie, and they did. Even on the first touchdown that wasn't a touchdown, was taken back. How are you going to let Jahan Dotson get past you like that and set up the first touchdown of the Super Bowl that ended up being a tush push? Steve looked lost. Andy was also very lost, but I think that doesn't come with bad play calling. I think that comes with a lack of preparation. I think that's more to blame. You have 2 weeks in between the AFC and NFC championship games and this Super Bowl. And I don't know what it was in Kansas City. I don't know what they did or didn't do here, but in my mind, I feel like they thought they could kind of just breeze through this game too, get it to a close game, and rely on Patrick Mahomes to be able to take them down the field with one drive needed at the end of the game and win it, and did not cover their bases and think about the fact that this Eagles team was just better than them on paper and in the game everywhere last night.
You know, I had heard that Kansas City just did walkthroughs on Friday and Saturday, or the plan was walkthrough Friday and plan on Saturday, while the Eagles ran a full simulation on Friday, full game, full, this is how long the halftime is. I guess that goes back to your preparation. You know, we're mimicking what's going to happen in the game, Philadelphia, and that coaching staff, while the Chiefs, hey, this is our chance for, you know, history. We already beat them once. We've made it through this whole year with these close games. We can do it again. And maybe they thought the refs definitely will be on our side.
Yeah. I had a point there, and because of your point about preparation and the walkthrough of the Super Bowl and timing and everything, the halftime. I actually love that you brought that up, because on Tuesday last week on the Pat McAfee show, Bill Belichick was on there, as he is, and they were talking to him about, hey, what would you do being in the Super Bowl so many times and having that extended halftime and doing all of this? Like, how would you prepare your team? He mentioned that, you know, the first run of the Patriots dynasty, they didn't really bring too much emphasis to it. But then once they got to, you know, the second one in 2011 against the Giants, and then once they got to the ones in 14, 16, 17, 18, because that was a newer team that hadn't been before and been there a couple times. I think he said they did it in 14 and they did it in 18, but he would prepare the team about going out there, you know, running a few drives, putting the pads on, offense versus defense, then bringing them back off the field, having them wait 30, 35 minutes, and then going back out there and playing another few drives against each other to see how that differs from a normal halftime, how you have to make sure not only do you readjust, but you also stay focused throughout the whole thing. But quite frankly, I don't know if, even if the Chiefs did that, I know they had most of their team still together from the teams that have been here for the last 2 years. This game was over at halftime, though.
Yeah.
I don't know how much preparing yourself for a layoff of that 30, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it was going to help them get readjusted in a game that was determined by half already.
And, you know, you made a point about just the dejection. You know, they had that one where DeAndre Hopkins just dropped that wide open ball and Chris Jones just falling to his knees.
It was a great thing to watch. It was great. Like I said, they got humbled, and it was great.
And yet they were already dejected, and then you go into halftime getting some speeches, I'm sure trying to get some fired up, but still, I don't think any fired up or anything. They just looked completely lost.
They did.
It was so evident, even on their face. And I think that, you know, the Eagles then are sensing that, seeing that, and just feeding off of that as well. We got them beat not only on the field, but mentally, we beat the crap out of them.
Beat the crap out of them, and coming out of halftime, then you see the look on their faces going in halftime. You see the lack of confidence in themselves coming out of halftime, and at that point for Philly, it's, you know, pedal to the metal, step on their throats. You know, they were out for blood coming out of the half, and it was very evident. I mean, for what it was worth and what the game it was, what it meant to us as Patriot fans, not wanting to see this three-peat, not wanting that legacy to be touched. That was great. The game itself sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, this was 40-6 at one point. I know they had 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions at the end, but I mean, what does that matter? You still lose by 18. I've really got nothing else to say here except for the fact that, like, congratulations, Philly. I never thought I'd be saying this and actually meaning it like I do. Never thought I would have caught myself cheering for good plays for the Eagles last night. But it was very evident to me and also to other people that were watching the Super Bowl with me, you know, even halfway through, that people were sick and fed up of the Chiefs and of their winning and of the ways that they found ways to win. And this was the end to it that we needed to see. Let it be known too. Like I said earlier, I don't want to hear any more conversations about GOAT talk this offseason.
Yep.
Let it be known. Yes, Brady lost a couple Super Bowls, 3 of them. But he would have never let this happen.
That's all the stuff I pulled up when I pulled up some Patriot news. Obviously everything this morning was all about, yes, you know, the GOAT talk is not there, and Tom did not lose. He lost, but not to this effect, this margin.
And it never looked as just shit as Pat did last night.
Even our losses were damn close.
We were damn close. You know, we were Philly special, a Mario Manningham catch, and a David Tyree helmet catch away from undefeated in those Super Bowls. Tom would have never let this happen. And let's not forget, this isn't the first time it's happened too. Mahomes' first Super Bowl loss back in 2020 against Tom, that game was over by halftime as well, a 31-9 loss to the Bucs there. They look completely outclassed on both sides of the field for all 60 minutes. And it's a great, for what people wanted as a storybook ending for the Chiefs, this was a great storybook ending, just in another way. And I'm happy the game happened how it did. The Eagles are back to being the enemy. It still felt Philly there, but
I don't think the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl next year.
I don't think they do either, because I think Drake May is going to be standing in the way.
Yeah. Obviously, the cool thing is blueprints have been made how to beat the Chiefs. And now you have to beat the Eagles, who was very young team.
Yeah, very young, very well put together. Everybody wants to highlight Saquon and the addition that he was offensively, but this was, even with their 3 losses this year, this was a team that was put together in the right ways to win a Super Bowl. And it was, whereas some points throughout the regular season, they were doubted a little bit. Once you got into the playoffs, when it mattered, this team was built to win, and they did that. And they, in the NFC Championship and in the Super Bowl, they did it in just overwhelming fashion and showed that they were in a class of their own at the top of the league. And that's the type of team that you need to win a Super Bowl.
And you've said this before. I mean, obviously you have star players, as your and your receivers, great, as you put, top 3 quarterback and a number 1 running back. But you've said this all along, it's the trenches.
It is. They beat them there. They beat them everywhere last night. But we previewed this game in depth. Neither of us imagined it would be how bad it was last night. But when you got a team that's firing on all cylinders there, and they must have listened to every single key of victory that we gave them last week.
Yeah,
because
they
executed them all out perfectly to a T. And that's how you beat the Chiefs. And like you said, there's the blueprint. It's there. AFC teams are going to get a whole lot of film time in this offseason, watching that game specifically and figuring out how to go into next year and how to make these games with the Chiefs not even close enough to get into the refs' hands like Philly did. And I think it's going to be very interesting. You said something about, the Chiefs won't be the 1 seed. They could be the 6 seed very easily. And I think that is on the table. I don't know if it's going from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 or 1 to 6, whatever it may be. But, you have the Broncos that made the playoffs, the Chargers that made the playoffs that were both a couple games out. And these teams that over the last few years are losing both games to the Chiefs and letting the Chiefs just kind of, walk through the AFC West. I think they take that game plan. They focus on it all off season. They, throughout the draft and throughout free agency, they fix the holes that they need to kind of build themselves and mold themselves in a fashion that the Eagles did, so that this AFC West, those 6 games in the AFC West outside of the Raiders, are not just throwaways at this point. And I think the AFC West is going to be a lot more competitive next year if this is the Chiefs team that we see. And I think it's very on the table that the Chargers or the Broncos potentially end up winning that division.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Chiefs looked, they still are a youngish team, and Patrick entering his prime, and obviously Worthy did a fantastic job for them second half and created some plays. And yes, he's young, but yeah, they looked old.
Yeah, very old. I don't know. Like, when the Pats played the Eagles and lost that game in 2017, the Eagles with both of their Super Bowl wins now within the span of 7 years or whatever that is, 8 years here. They were the better team when they beat us that night. They were the better team last night when they won. However, there's just a little bit of a difference, and I don't even think it's a difference on Philadelphia's part. I think both of their Super Bowl wins now have been perfectly executed game plans, where the Chiefs just were never able to catch up and figure it out. Whereas when we lost to them, it was, we were trying to catch up, but they were just 2 steps ahead the whole time. It's interesting watching that game through and watching the one in 2017 now, and being able to look back on it and just see the difference in how their game plan was executed and their preparation was, and how Nick Sirianni just got this team up for this game last night. And I think a lot of it too, let's not downplay the fact that, they were there 2 years ago. And they remember the feeling.
Yeah.
Jalen specifically remembered the feeling of what happened in, I think, Arizona and Glendale, and how that game went down. And that's something too, that preparation and 2 weeks off between the championship games, that's something you just can't account for. Like you said, that they beat them mentally, and it was very evident by halftime, but they beat them mentally all throughout the game.
Yep.
They came into that game with a chip on their shoulder. Everybody that was still there from that team 2 years ago, not even Saquon necessarily, because, of him joining just this offseason, but they came into that game and they remembered how they made them feel 2 years ago, and they made Kansas City feel just like that, if not worse. And that was their game plan too.
Now, you had mentioned you think Jalen's going to be top 3, as you put it, but he's losing now his offensive coordinator. What's that going to do?
More than people think it will. I'll say that. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to be quite too good in New Orleans. I think, whereas we've talked about this multiple times with other coordinators, I think there's certain guys that just have ceilings as just coordinators. I think we're going to see that with Kellen Moore. Do we see a reunion between him and the Eagles in about 2 years or something when he's fired? 2-3 years, maybe. I think this is a guy that's going to have a ceiling as a coordinator and just a coordinator. Yeah. But I think they're going to hire the right guy. I don't know who that's going to be. This is not an Eagles podcast, so I don't care to go and look at their, guys that they're looking at so far. But I think they're probably going to look to hire a guy that's going to know how to utilize the dynamic playmakers that they have on the outside and on the inside there in the trenches as well. Not even just Saquon, just looking to be innovative with the O-line that you have that is levels above other ones in the league. Look for a guy that's innovative with their play calling in terms of having a dual threat quarterback that can be a dual threat quarterback, being innovative in how you utilize the tush push that has worked so efficiently for them over the years. It'll be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. I don't know how much it's going to do in terms of affecting their efficiency as an offense. That's something that will need to be seen going into next year and when they try to go back-to-back as well. But I think there's certain teams and there's certain quarterbacks that very coordinator dependent. And I just, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking too much about what I saw last night and how well that team worked. But if you're telling me that Eagles team that I saw for 60 minutes last night is going to just change overnight because of Kellen Moore not being there anymore, I just can't sit there and believe it.
I'm wondering, though, one other question after this. I wonder if Kellen does a Ben Johnson at the last minute. I mean, obviously, Mike McCarthy's still there if New Orleans wants to do it. But, I mean, it's going to be hard for him to want to walk away from, potential repeat because they are going to be a favorite. But, still, you have the opportunity to run a program yourself. But I agree with you. I think Kellen is just a coordinator. No offense to him, but I think he's going to be just a coordinator because you're going to a situation, and that's the problem. All these coordinators go into situations where you're like, I don't have immediate success. I can only have a lot of failure. So my last question to you, obviously, we were excited about a potential reunion with A.J. Brown and Vrabel. Do you see that still an option, or do you think Philadelphia is not going to want to trade him?
I never saw it as an option. We threw it out there, but I told you that was most likely not happening. No, I don't see it happening. AJ was on the field where he needed to be.
Yep.
Last night.
Dominant.
Too dominant. People are going to continue to try to throw Jalen under the bus in terms of trying to get him and AJ separated. But no, I didn't see it happening before the Super Bowl. I still don't see it happening. It'd be cool to see. Don't get me wrong, because AJ Brown is a great player. But no, I don't think. I think if we're going to see any changes specifically to Philly this offseason, they're only going to be ones that make them better and not make them worse. Not something that big like trading their alpha wide receiver one. All right, Dad here. Fucking I've got this, but yeah. Before I get into this thing about the Patriots here, who wins the Super Bowl next year? Way too early predictions. Who's your Super Bowl 60 matchup, and who's your winner?
Matchup. I'm gonna say it is gonna be what we all wanted. It's gonna be a Bills Lions, and Buffalo will win.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else it could be. On the NFC side, but I can't think of anything else. I think you're right. I think it's Bills Lions. And for the sake of the program here, I'll say the Lions. I'll say the Lions win it. But either one of those teams winning it would make for a good Super Bowl, and it definitely won't be anything like that game that we saw last night. All right. So we're done. We're done with the 2024-2025 season. It's time to look ahead. It's time to look ahead until Drake May's breakout campaign sophomore year here.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying this on our car ride home. I think 10-7 and making the playoffs and potentially winning the first round game and then losing in the divisional is very much on the table for the Patriots. But what would we need to add to get there? Well, there were a couple star wide receivers that requested some trades this week, and both of them have already been linked to the Patriots. Both of them coming from the NFC West. That would be Deebo Samuel from the 49ers and Cooper Kupp from the Los Angeles Rams. I've got a article here saying what it might cost the Patriots to land Cooper Kupp and Deebo. It says something about Kupp first. Due to those factors, people around the NFL view the trade help. This is something with Keenan Allen from the Chargers to the Bears. But they say that could be a model for a possible Kupp trade this offseason. In that trade, the Bears surrendered a 4th-round pick, number 110 overall, to the Chargers for Allen. Kupp won OPOY and Super Bowl MVP in 2021. Might cost a little more, but they're believing that might be the cost for Kupp at the end of the day. And it's possible that a trade for Samuel might cost the same. Last offseason, the 49ers were seeking 2nd and 3rd-round picks for Samuel at the time. 2024 season most likely hurt his trade value, though. He had arguably the worst season of his career, recording 51 receptions for 670 yards and 3 touchdowns in 15 games. If you have your choice, and it's Kupp for a 4th-round pick this year, or it's Deebo for a 5th and a 7th, or a 5th and a 5th this year and a 6th the year after, which one are you going after? And then which one do you think, if both are on the table, is more beneficial for Drake in his second year and would give him that step up and that guy that he needs?
I think it's easy. It's Deebo. And only because I see Cooper, yes, I mean, does have some sneaky speed. But I think he would be slotted in more as a slot, and now you're taking away from Demario Douglas. I think Deebo can be that X receiver. Plus, I like his, ability to. He's shown it being in the backfield as well and running, and I think that we will see us more again under Mike, a run first team using Drake a lot more with his legs, and I would think that would be a much better fit than Cooper.
Interesting. I'm on the other side of the fence here. I think it's Cooper, just in terms of the experience that he brings to the wide receiver room as well. While Deebo is an established vet in this league, I think we have a very young wide receiver room, and I think that bringing in Cooper Kupp would be more beneficial, not only just on the field, but off the field in terms of how he would better prepare the younger guys and give them the insight that they need to hopefully take that step forward in 2025 as well. However, I think you're right on the Deebo side, because I think the cost is less. I think contract-wise, the cost is less. Cooper's got a pretty heavy contract that would come in with him, especially being 32 or turning 32 in June to start the year. Debo, a little bit older as well, but only 29. Everybody's going to point to injury concerns around, Debo Samuel, but at the same time, Kupp's missed 18 games of the last 3 seasons. He's getting up there as well. Both of them, regardless of if we went for either one, I think we would see either of them miss games next year, whether it be in a Patriots uniform or any other uniform for that matter. I don't think either of them are necessarily the answer. I think we attack wide receiver elsewhere, whether that's through the draft, free agency, or exploring other trade options. But if those can't get settled, if we can't figure out something there, I'm not going to be, mad at a Cooper Kupp or Debo Samuel trade to get us a guy that in their prime, if they were, at their best, could be a very dominant one for us.
Oh, yeah. And when you're looking at the value coming from us, I think it's only an upside. And those draft picks that we're giving up. So, again, can you find a late round draft pick that would be successful either at the line or somewhere at that same value that you're going to get from a receiver who, yes, will be missing some games, but what can he do on the field to, when he is healthy, able to move defenses to surround him and open up other people and yet be a playmaker themselves. So I think giving what we'd have to give back would be a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's definitely for the cheap, but I think it would be worth it. But that is something we'll have to see. That like we said a couple of weeks ago when we did this for the college football season. But now the time is really upon us that football's done. It's gonna take a little to get used to here. We got 7 months again until we'll see some football. But
the USFL's coming.
Shut up. Shut up. That's it for football. We will still be bringing up football and talking about it throughout this pod.
Drafts. We'll be doing mock drafts now.
Doing some mock drafts. Me and Dad talked about our plan for keeping football involved in the podcast. Something that'll start next week leading up to the draft. We will be breaking down honestly every position that we can in terms of the best prospects for quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and going all throughout the field. Position group at a time. We'll be talking about that up until we get to the combine. We'll start talking about, combine performers. We'll start doing mock drafts. And then once we get past draft time, we'll have to regroup and figure out what we're going to do except sit here and twiddle our thumbs until fucking September comes up and we've got football again. But we appreciate y'all listening in and being with us for a full football season, college and NFL. This was our first full one on the podcast, whereas we started last year in January and got through the playoffs and everything. Made it through our first football season fully on a new era podcast, Dad. Now, 58 episodes in, I think I said. So before we move on to different... Yeah, I know. I was going to say, I'll give you a second to say your last goodbyes to football for a couple months.
Football, growing up, I did love baseball, but baseball during its difficult years with steroids and all kind of fell off, and football definitely is America's pastime. It's gonna be hard. At least I get to play my college football on the Xbox and still get some of that, but it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult to miss you.
Gonna be difficult to miss you. He said everything. Said everything right there. Everything that I was gonna say. Thank you for a great season, football. And my last point about football until we start talking about it again in season. Patrick Mahomes now has 2 Super Bowl losses to Drake May's 0. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, nice.
All right, moving on to other talk here. Dad.
Yeah.
This was a great week for the Celtics. Outside of the loss to the Mavericks on Thursday, which honestly I'm just figuring out now. I didn't see the score come through about that game or anything. But in terms of getting through the East and beating the guys that we needed to beat in the East, man, did we do it, and we did it well. A win against the Cavs on Tuesday, 112-105, in a game that many others were saying should have been a blowout. And then we actually got that blowout that we wanted on Saturday against the Knicks, 131-104. Celtics are back to rolling. Cavs are still 5.5 games up in the East. However, this was the week outside of the Mavericks loss that I wanted to see from these Celtics. And if there was any doubts and any scared fans going into this week, I think it's very evident now that the East, regardless of if they're going to be the 1 seed or the 2 seed or the 3 or whatever it is, the East still runs through Boston, and nobody in the East is beating this team 4 times in a 7-game series.
Absolutely not. I mean, Luke, this game was, again, the Knicks game, and I did watch not a full portion. All of a sudden, I realized the game was on. I mean, I knew it was on, but I was doing something else. I'm like, oh, crap, the game is on, so let's watch. Luke Cornett had a game. Unbelievable. 14-12. 14 points, 12 rebounds. And Peyton Pritchard, man. That kid. No one can stop that kid right now.
Mm-hmm.
It was great to hear the broadcast and how 3 years ago he requested a trade, and then obviously was denied it, learned his role, and right now just embracing the 6-man. And what a performance. And to have him do what he's doing, and a lot usually with Jaylen Brown on the court as well. You know, Jalen's, I think, let him go, you know?
Yeah, no, he's definitely letting it happen. That was one of the points that I was going to bring up, just about why I'm not too worried about the loss to the Mavericks. First off, we're still not at full strength, even though it feels like we're getting closer and closer every week. Drew has been out for quite a bit, but I think that's more so keeping him out because we can, and because we can let Peyton go and do his thing, but also, you know, having the freedom to kind of let Drew get healthy, because we want him for the playoffs and we want that team to be at full strength then. But Peyton was great in the 6-man role when Drew was, you know, healthy earlier in the season. He was an early contender for 6th man of the year, and still is probably the front runner at this point. But to get that impact of a guy that needs to step in when such a key piece of your offense is injured, like Drew Holiday, a great distributor of the rock when it comes down to being the point guard that we need, and a great defensive presence. Whereas Peyton does lack that defensively. His offense that can take, you know, that next step is just so valuable and so important to this team. And it is something that I hope, if we are missing Drew near the end of the year and into the playoffs, Joe finds a way to game plan this team defense a little better to make up for what Peyton's lacking on the defensive end. But quite frankly, if it comes down to it and you can't figure that out, maybe your game plan then is, just outscore them. And that is something that Peyton is completely capable of doing as well.
Yeah, no, it was a very promising game. Again, having a win. I mean, obviously, they won every quarter, but to pull it off 35-28, both in the third and fourth, something that we've been saying along that we lose or keep it tight in the third, and that's been our games that we've lost. Able to just keep the pedal down. Jason, I mean, incredible 40 points. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you an opportunity here to bring up your favorite stat that you do with these Celtics. Ed, can you look up the rebound differential in that Mavericks and Celtics game? And let me know if this was key to our problems in that one again. Actually,
No.
I think I've got
we out-rebound them 40-35, offensive 11-8, and defense was 29-27. So we out-rebound them. Where it goes, our difficulty right here was we only shot 43.2 to their 45.5 on the 3-point. And field goal was 51-55. So right there.
That and a difference of 6 total turnovers in that game as well. 9 steals for the Mavericks and 2 for us. That's probably the factor, but oh well. All right, so looking ahead at the Celtics this week, we've got a game against the Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat tonight in Miami. On Wednesday, back home in Boston against the Spurs. Back-to-back on Thursday in Philadelphia against the 76ers. And then Sunday, we get to see those Knicks again in Boston, 1 o'clock. That one will be on ESPN because they got nothing else to talk about on Sundays with football gone. Pretty packed week for the Celtics here. I see 3-1 coming, and I see a loss to the Spurs or the 76ers of all teams, both teams that we would think we should beat, but something's telling me one of those games we're going to end up dropping in the back-to-back.
Yeah, I agree. 3-1. It would be better, obviously, if we can beat the East and beat Philadelphia, but I don't think so. I think we go all out. We want to show San Antonio who's boss, especially at home. And then unfortunately we'll lose to Philadelphia, who, although I wonder if they will have a hangover. Although Philadelphia, the 76ers are going to be like, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I bet that parade's getting scheduled for Friday too. And what a better thing to do than beat Boston Thursday night in Philly. I feel like something's going to be in the air for him there.
Yeah.
But nothing to worry about. 3-1 week won't be too bad, and will get us just a little bit closer to. Wait a second. Oh, no. That was next week. I completely skipped ahead. That's February 20th for Philly and the Knicks.
Oh, that's
yes, we only have 2 this week. I forget. We have the All-Star break coming up. So only 2 games for the All-Star break. That's going to completely switch how I feel about those games once we talk about them next week. All right. Well, then 2-0 week before the All-Star break.
2-0.
2-0 week. 2-0 week. Get your rest for the guys that aren't involved in the All-Star. Hope Jalen and Jason have some fun in wherever the All-Star game is this year. I'm not too sure. But
I think it's Golden State.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
San Francisco. Yeah.
Yep. All right, that makes sense. All right, 2-0 week. Get to the break.
Cleveland is going Minnesota and then the Raptors this week.
Okay. I could see 1-1 there. I could see them losing to Minnesota. They play Minnesota tonight?
Today, 7 o'clock in Cleveland, but yep.
Okay. Could drop that one.
Get another game closer.
And then once we come back from the All-Star break, then we really start pocket watching everybody else in the East and seeing where we can pick up games where they're going to drop them. All right. Dad, on to the Bruins here. Bruins had a Bruins week. Beating the Wild on Tuesday 3-0, losing on the back-to-back to the Rangers 3-2, on Wednesday and losing a heartbreaking, terrible performance of a game on Saturday against the Knights. Could have been 5-3. They almost had an empty netter right at the end. I think they put it on the board and then took it off as well because it went in just after the horn went off. But that game is the one I want to focus on here. Up 3-1 at one point and absolutely just shitting the bed in the third period to allow the Golden Knights, not even just in the third, nearing the end of the second, to allow Vegas to come back on home ice. You can't have that one. That one sucked to watch. I only ended up seeing really the end of it, but that just about sums up Bruins hockey for you this year in a game at home that was so within reach of winning. And after that week, puts us down in the Atlantic. I'll tell you, we are in 6th out of 8th there. And the Panthers are starting to really pull away with 71 points up in first. You got Toronto at 68, Lightning at 66, Senators at 62, Red Wings at 61. The playoffs are still within reach, attainable a little bit, but that was just the embodiment of what we've seen out of these Bruins this year.
So we watched the entire game, and it was funny. I was telling Mom, I said, hey, if you listen to our podcast, you will hear we do not play an entire 60 minutes of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
We're a 40. In this case, it was probably a 32-minute game of hockey. We looked great in that first period, into the second, and then, man, just defensive slip-ups again. Jeremy, the positive is Jeremy's starting to look really good, making some incredible saves like we're accustomed to. It's just those give-ups in the middle of the ice, stone, a tip, and just breakouts that we defensively are just not handling. I mean, the one goal, how do you have two Bruins go after the point man and giving up the middle of the ice? I mean, that was a heartbreaker. The system is just not working defensively. Offensively, hey, look, 3, 2, and then 3. I mean, Pasternak is just doing everything he can offensively for this team. Morgan Geekie, career high again, tying 17 goals from a year ago, so he'll definitely surpass that. Who would have thought Morgan Geekie being on that top line? But again, it's Pasternak. He is an incredible player.
Yeah, one of the best. But sadly, hockey's still a team game. And as this article says that I'm looking at from Boston.com here, Bruins found a new way to disappoint in what continues to look like a lost season. Is really sums it up exactly how I was going to say here. Sacco said something going into the game against Vegas that they're going into these last 4 games treating it like playoff hockey. And that was the last 4 before the break here. Sacco said Friday morning, so far we're 2-1 out of that 4 right now. We have one more game to finish it off. A massive opportunity for us. They were saying all the right things, but it just could not translate to the ice. But we got to the break, and that is the only thing that I hope is going to save this team and potentially. They got to regroup. They got to figure it out. We talk about this every week. I'm not going to continue to, beat the same thing over and over again. We don't have another game for another 12 days against the Ducks coming back off the break on February 22nd. And that needs to be a win, and they need to, start out the little stretch after the break with 3 home games with a good run to try to get back in these standings. This is our last ditch effort here. Mm-hmm. We were hoping just get to the break and see if this figures out the team, figures out the issues, figures out why they can't play a full 60 minutes of hockey, why they always let a period slip away from them, and why they've been unraveling in the third period as of recently. this is your last effort here, Boston. We got, up until April 15th after the break, so a little less than 2 months. Once we get to the game against the Ducks, see if they can turn it around, see if the whole team can come together. And, as you're saying, Pasta's been having a tremendous season and really been turning it on as of late. But got to be able to see it from everybody for a full 60 minutes going forward. And at least on the bright side, Dad, no Bruins hockey games this week to potentially disappoint us in. So we won't need to talk about getting disappointed from them next week. However, we'll need to talk about if we think that this break is what they needed to truly recenter themselves and get them back to hopefully a playoff caliber team going into the back half of the year.
This next three, they have to, and they've done well at home, played better at home than on the road. If you can take all three, I'm afraid that we get more excited. We're back into the playoff push, and then something happens afterward. It's just like they draw us in. They're like, oh, here's our opportunity. We put on a run, and then all of a sudden we fall apart. It was interesting to listen to broadcast. They were asking about, the Bruins and where they are, into the playoffs going in. Do you start to watch? And they're like, no, just worry about your own scoring. Ray Ferraro was saying that. But he also mentioned that any of these wild card opportunity teams could make a push come the playoffs. Like everyone's just so tight. I don't see that for the Bruins. If we do get in, I think it's a one and done kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. I see this team losing in 5, regardless of who they play in the first round as of right now. But hopefully, the team that shows up on the 22nd and those 2 games after that can prove me otherwise and have it be a little bit of a different story going forward. All right, Dad. Last thing here. The Sox, kid, they're back. Wednesday, pitchers and catchers report. We have finally made it through the baseball offseason. Very quick one, really. But we've made it here to almost Wednesday, and there's still no word on Alex Bregman or Nolan Arenado to the Red Sox, which I know where the Bregman talks have kind of slowed down recently. The Nolan Arenado talks, I feel like, have ramped up a little bit more. But going into the pitchers and catchers reporting on Wednesday, and then I was just looking at it. I think on the 17th is the first full club workout ahead of spring training starting on the 22nd, right when the Bruins are back after the break. We get the Red Sox starting their spring training, so at least there, if the Bruins are having a bad back end of the season, we got something to look forward to there, at least with the Sox and the new kids coming up. How are you feeling going into pitchers and catchers reporting? Anything that you want to say before we get to there and can finally start talking about the Red Sox kind of in season again, as we've been waiting for this to happen throughout this offseason?
I'm excited to see these pitchers and catchers go. I mean, we have a brand new pitching staff. Hopefully a healthy group throughout the course of the year. I think we mentioned this. I had posed this question 6-7 episodes ago. Which of these teams outside of the Celtics are the closest to a championship? You said the Sox definitely are. Really excited about the young stars as well. And where does Duran take this to the next level? Where does Sedane, Rafaela take this? Like, these guys, obviously, Devers, we know who he is. And hopefully the other guys step up and can take some of the pressure off of Devers, and just because sometimes I think he felt some pressure last year and try to hit the home run, do this. Hopefully he can come at ease, hit over that 300 mark, which he has done for most of his career, and 20 some odd home runs. Yeah, really excited about this team.
Yeah, you make a great point. I'm very excited about the team. I'm still holding out hope that we see one of these big splashes, either with it being Bregman or Arenado happening soon. Craig Breslow has came out and said, as most recently 2 days ago, that the Red Sox still do want to add a difference maker to the lineup before opening day. So I don't think us getting to spring training is going to, quiet these talks anymore. Says we're still searching for that difference maker bat and a relief arm. So there still may be some other names and some other guys in a Sox uniform before we see opening day, and hopefully so, as we've wanted just a little bit more out of this offseason from the Sox here. But I'm pretty excited. I'm happy for baseball. I'm happy for college baseball coming back too, albeit a game this weekend for ECU as their season kicks back off. And we take baseball for granted. I feel like now that football is going to be gone, and then in a couple months, basketball and hockey will be gone as well, and their playoffs will be done. Baseball is the only thing that really holds us over until the fall when we get all these sports back. America's pastime, is like some people like to say. I know you said it was football a little earlier, but the one thing here, I know we've talked about this a couple times this offseason so far, and that would be a 6-man rotation after adding Garrett Crochet. This is when it really came up in our conversations, but apparently Andrew Bailey is not ruling it out yet. Hasn't confirmed whether that's going to be the case, but it's almost like we said this then.
Yeah. Well, going back to your point about adding a bat before opening day, I'm on the other side. Like, it has to happen now if we're going to do it. I mean, you have pitchers and catchers now for probably a week and a half, but you need, if you're going to make one of these moves, it has to be before positional players come in. Only because you have some questions and anyway with flexibility and where people can play. And I don't want to see, Campbell getting a bulk of the work, or Von Grisham getting a bulk of the work at second base, and then a week before opening day, and all of a sudden Bregman comes walking in. Like, what's that going to do to the kid's mindset? I'd rather see, if it's going to happen, happen before they get in, so they know what roles they're going to have, rather than, hey, you've had a great spring training, could be our starter, but well, no, we got this guy. Yeah. And then what do you do? Now, does Grissom become a trade bait to get Bregman? That I'd be fine. Him. Yeah, I'd be fine there, but
no, Bregman be signed. You're talking about Arenado?
Oh yeah. But it's like, I'm just worried about, Christian has made this huge move all the way up through the system now with this golden opportunity. And if he's going to be your second baseman and he's playing off the bat as spring training starts, that's the only thing I'm worried about.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Good news here. In talking about the 6-man rotation, this is just saying it remains to be seen whether Giolito will be ready for opening day. But the veteran righty recently said he'll be a full go for the first squad workout. That was the one, like I said, on the 17th. So seems like he has rehabbed well from that Tommy John surgery that he needed to have last year after signing him. And hopefully he can regain the version of himself that was pretty good with the White Sox the year before. Last thing here, though, that I'm seeing, I know we've been talking about, even before the Garrett Crochet trade, that they were still looking a little bit for potentially other starters. And we thought that got shored up with the Crochet trade, and we weren't going to hear too much about it. But I'm seeing an article here from the 7th that there's still rumors about Craig making a move to get Dylan Cease from the Padres. This proposed trade from Bleacher Report saying Wilyer Abreu and Cooper Criswell for Dylan Cease. I'd be very down with that. I'm a big fan of Dylan Cease. I think, like Crochet, one of those high strikeout upside guys that I've talked about multiple times throughout this offseason. I love to see as a pitcher. I'm a big fan of those high strikeout upside guys and adding them into the lineup. And especially if you were to pair him in here with Crochet and Houck, that would be just an unbelievable 1-2-3 to start the rotation. Yes, I know I was just saying stuff about a 6-man rotation. Then you go in there and you add another, and could it be a 7 or something like that? But you would get rid of Cooper Criswell in this trade, one of the guys that would potentially be in that 6-man, and just shore up this starting rotation just a little bit more. How do you feel about this one? Do you feel like if the Padres come knocking with this proposal, you pull the trigger on it, or would you rather keep Abreu as of right now, just so you're not forcing Roman into a spot that he might, as much as we want him to, and as much as we have hype behind him, he just might not be ready for yet going into spring training?
No, I'd make that deal because I think, obviously Gold Glove winner, had a good rookie performance. I just see him striking out way too much in needed at bats. And I think that, you still have a deep outfield that you could have then, maybe Jaron goes to right because you can always put, you still have Motzi, you still have Cedena, and then you could put him there, and then Roman doesn't have to be put into a full-time role if he's not quite ready. So I'd be fine with that because pitching, you can't have enough pitching.
Yeah, especially with some of the
star pitching. Yeah,
injuries and stuff that we've seen ramp up more recently with just not even just relievers, but starting pitchers. And you want to be set in a good place if it does come down to running into some injuries early on in the season, and especially early on in spring training. So I love this idea as much as I've loved Abreu and what he did for us last year with the Gold Glove and everything. I think you're right. I think he's just a little bit too much of a strikeout candidate there. And I think we've all known that he would be some trade bait after the performance that he had last year. It was just it wasn't really a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And if we were holding him for this move specifically, I think now's the time to pull the trigger on it. So,
yeah.
All right, Dad, that's all I've got. That's all I got for the Sox. That's all I got for the episode. You got anything else here? Any last thoughts on Sox, Bruins, Celtics, or Super Bowl before we wrap up our episode?
Last thoughts. Enjoy the All-Star, the Jays. Celtics obviously can start to make a move on Cleveland here. Bruins, don't pull us back in just to kill us again later on. and Red Sox, yep, you're now on the clock. Could be our favorite team coming up.
You're up. It's time. It's time, Sox. We need it. Well, we don't need it. The Celtics are still doing their thing, but please pick up some of the slack that's been happening with the with the Bruins here and get us back down to where we need to be. But all right, well, that'll be it, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening in to episode 58 of A New Era podcast. We appreciate you listening. As always, if you'd like to keep up with us on social media outside of the episodes, make sure to do so at A New Era Podcast on Twitter, at A New Era Podcast on Instagram, A New Era Podcast on Facebook. And if you'd like to email us any questions, concerns, or funny business, A New Era Podcast at gmail.com. We appreciate you listening in to episode 58 here, and we will catch you guys next week for episode 59. Love you, Dan.